mit Panzern und Sturmgeschützen auf Selbstfahrlafette nach vorn.
Hello everybody, today I'm going to tell you the story of another question that was sent to me by a YouTube viewer and that had a happy, successful ending. So first I'll send you the email that started this investigation. So it's somebody in Germany who is telling me that one of his uncles was in the SS troops and was killed in Normandy in June 1944 during the fighting there. And now nobody knows where his body is. So this was a young guy. His name was, you see, Joseph Torhan, who disappeared. He was born in August 1925, which means he would have been 18 years old at the time he was killed as a member of the SS. And what's interesting is that you see the documentation says his nationality is Polish and his race is Aryan. And he was from an area called Kreis-Lendschutz, so that's in Poland nowadays. And if I'm not mistaken, but I'm not a specialist of this, this is an area that was annexed by Germany after they invaded Poland. And here it says as well, you see that his father is Polish and that his mother is Volksdeutsch, so Eastern German. So I'm not going to go into any more details about his private life. It's just interesting to see that this SS guy actually officially had Polish nationality and was basically from Poland, but from one of these Eastern German families. So it just gives you an impression of the complicated situations that some of these people may have lived in. So now about his death and his time in Normandy. The only document that the family actually had is the letter that they received in 1944 announcing that Joseph Torhan had been killed. So the letter is pretty typical. It says, you know, I have the difficult duty of telling you that your son, SS Sturmann Joseph Torhan, died on 30th of June 1944 in a difficult battle in the forest near Neuilly-le-Malherbe. He found a hero's death. May it bring you some comfort to know that the death was without any pain. It was very rapid and painless, because a shell fragment hit him in the head and gave him a deadly wound. And then it has the standard phrases about him having done his duty for the Führer, the people, and the fatherland. So if we take a look at a map, we see that the area where the death occurred is in Normandy, near Caen, near Saint-Lô, near Falaise, so right in the middle of where all the fighting was occurring in June 1944. And now we go back to the letter. So it said he died, and then here it says his comrades buried him in a village called Maisoncelle sur Ajon, and he's going to send pictures to the family of the grave. But now the family never received the pictures of the grave, and when they make requests to know where this guy is buried, they find nothing. It's as if he's missing in action. Nobody knows what happened to this grave. So this is a bit surprising for me, because the Germans, even when they were losing, they were very well organized when it comes to graves. They would make a report that was sent back to Germany saying where the death had happened and also indicating where the body had been buried. So if a German soldier was killed and buried by his own troops, then the location where he was buried should be recorded in Berlin, which means that then they should be able to find the grave and identify the person after the war. And also, even when they were losing battles, the Germans, if they could recover the bodies, they buried them very nicely, even when they had very limited time. This is a grave in Paris, for example, made just a couple of days before Paris was liberated. This is another one in Paris. So you see, it's improvised graves beside a park, like in the middle of the street, but they still have these very nicely done crosses and stuff. And what this means is that any local inhabitants would also have known that these graves existed. So when the Germans would have looked for the graves after the war, the local inhabitants would have been able to tell them, you know, this is where the graves were. And to come back to Joseph Torhan, so this isn't a picture of his funeral, of course, but it is a picture of an SS soldier being buried by other SS men in Normandy in June 1944. And you can see they have these special camouflage uniforms the SS had, and it says SS on the helmet as well if you look from close up. So I don't understand why this guy was not found after the war if he was buried by the Germans in a known location. So this is what I answered the family member. I told him he should do two things. Number one, he should contact the archives in Berlin and ask for a copy of his uncle's military file to see what that says. And then number two, he should contact the German War Graves Commission, not asking them, do you know of Joseph Torhan, but asking them more specific questions. I said he has to ask them, like, what did they do in this village Maisoncelle? Did they exhume any bodies there? If yes, how many? Are there any unknown bodies amongst them? And all that. To see, because maybe the German War Graves Commission missed this area for some reason, you know? Or maybe there's some kind of mistake occurred, or maybe the cross had gotten lost or something and they found his body but it's not identified. So knowing what bodies they found will help clarify the situation and maybe help to identify the body. So the first document is the copy of his military file from Berlin, and this document is surprisingly empty. It says identification tag, no information. Unit, no information. Rank SS Sturmann, so that's there. It also has the address of his next of kin. And then regarding the grave, it says there was a request made in 1982 from the German War Graves Commission asking where he's buried, and they don't know where he's buried. So this is interesting because it means that the Germans, when they buried him in Normandy, they should have sent a report to Berlin, and obviously in that case that report either was never sent or else never reached its destination, since Berlin does not know where the grave is buried. And that's understandable in a chaotic situation such as Normandy. Maybe this report was written and then, you know, the car that was carrying it got shot up, or maybe they got caught up in the Falaise gap or something and everything was destroyed. So actually the Germans do not have the information that he was buried in this village Maisoncelle. The family know that because they have the period letter that was sent to them, but that same information did not reach Berlin. And then he received a response from the German War Graves Commission as well. And this is an extremely satisfying response because it says, we looked into our archives regarding what happened in the village of Maisoncelle, so where Torhan was buried. And now they located a body that is very likely actually the missing uncle. And this is the records that the German War Graves Commission have. They have Joseph Tarhan, born on 28 August 1925 and who died on 1st of July 1944, buried in Maisoncelle. So let's look at that closer. This is the info on the missing uncle, Joseph Torhan with an O, born on 24th of August 1925 and died on 30th of June 1944. And this is the information the German War Graves Commission have. Joseph Tarhan with an A, born on 28 August 1925 and who died on 1st of July 1944. So this is all very typical classical mistakes that can happen. An O becomes an A 4 becomes an 8, and a date of burial, the body was probably buried on the 1st of July, becomes a date of death. And it's pretty clear when you see this that the uncle actually isn't missing, he's just buried under a mistaken name, and therefore when his family look for him in the lists, they can't find him, and the same for the German War Graves Commission, when they look for him in their lists, they cannot find him. And how did this mistake happen? Well, this is a kind of a hint. The place where the body is buried now is called the cemetery of St Désir de Lisieux, it's a German war cemetery, and unlike most German war cemeteries, it was not actually made by the Germans. This is a cemetery that was made by the British Army, who exhumed German bodies from the area and concentrated all of them in this one cemetery. And then after the war, they handed over the responsibility of the cemetery to the Germans, since these were German soldiers. So you can imagine that if the bodies were exhumed by British, and the paperwork was done by British, the chances of a spelling mistake occurring in a German name becomes higher. And the German War Graves Commission conclude their letter by saying, please send us some documentation about your uncle, and that way we can correct our archives. And so basically the case is solved. The family is convinced that this is the right person. The German War Graves Commission also noticed that this is the right person, because I didn't verify this, but for sure there actually is no Joseph Torhan. This guy doesn't exist. So the correct one is Torhan with an O. So basically this case is solved. And this is his grave nowadays, you see, so buried under a false name for 80 years, Joseph Torhan. So I guess when this cross will be worn out and they'll make a new one, they'll write his correct name on it. And this reminds me a lot of another case I worked on, a soldier called strobel, who was missing in action. And then after doing research, it turned out that he was actually buried by the Americans under the name strubel, so they just confused an O with a U, and because of that, you know, he became missing for his family for 70 years, and for the German War Graves Commission and for the archives, because when they look up a person in their lists, well, if the name has a mistake like this, then they can't find him. And this is Strubel's grave nowadays. And if you want to know more about that case, I had made a whole detailed video about it, as well as several other cases of mistakes in identity. So this is an interesting video you can go back and watch. So the family member of Joseph Torhan was, of course, extremely pleased with this result. What you have to understand is that this is a very lucky case. Most of the times a family contacts me about a missing relative. You know, he's missing in Russia somewhere, and there's no information about his cause of death or his location of death or any location of burial. And of course, cases like that are basically hopeless. You can just hope that someday diggers in Russia will find the body and get it identified. But you can't actually go and look for it anywhere because you don't know where it is. This case, the fact that the Germans had buried him was a huge hint, and now it was nicely solved. And the family member says, thank you so much for your work. Your YouTube videos were the reason which motivated me to start the search for my uncle. So this, of course, makes me very proud and happy to be able to help a family like this, even 80 years after the war, and gives me energy and motivation to make more YouTube videos. So that's the end of this story. And if you have similar queries about missing family members, missing soldiers, also any World War II souvenirs, you know, what they are and whatever, how to look up soldiers, you can always contact me at this email address. Have a nice day, and bye-bye.